Hello and welcome to yet another stay-at-home edition of Hitting Home with Mike and Arif. Hope everybody's doing well. This week we want to talk a little bit about what is happening, not so much today. We'll focus a little bit on today, but we want to take a little crystal ball look ahead at how housing needs and wants are evolving as a result of COVID-19. Just to kind of bring us up to the moment here, the market is it's trickling along. It's not dead, but it's certainly nowhere near as busy as we would expect it to be at this point. But I still think it's overall a healthy market. Up until April, we were ahead of last year in terms of the number of sales, and that started to slow down in the last 6 to 8 weeks. So, Arif, what do you think looking forward? Is there anything you personally would change in your housing situation as a result of being in the house for the last 3 months?
Sure. Well, I think that's a great lead in, Mike. I think I actually, as you were speaking, I was hearing and envisioning the sigh of many realtors or many people in the real estate industry as they thought this was going to be a great year that they were going into, and all of a sudden it just sort of, I don't want to say fell off a cliff, but it certainly, the market certainly constrained. We'll get into some of that detail as to why housing prices on the average on the data may have appeared to have dipped, but we'll get into what that information really mean. How does that really translate? As to what I'm seeing and as to what I'm seeing by cabin fever, or what am I seeing in terms of changes in habits, et cetera, what I predicted and what I am seeing and what I'm thrilled to be seeing is I said, this is the year, 2020 is the year that is going to go down in history of having, when that Google Maps car goes around the different neighborhoods, we're going to see the best looking curb appeal in all the neighborhoods. Across North America, Europe, everywhere. We're going to see some great curb appeal because people are not able to travel to the same degree that they were, and they're taking those dollars that they do have, if they have, or if it's time that they have, and they're investing back into their home, into their curb appeal, into their backyards, into that deck or that above ground pool, whatever it may be. And so what dollars people have, I'm seeing predicted are going to be reinvested into our homes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The garden centers, the builders, supply stores, they've all been experiencing lineups of people looking to do just that, improve their homes. And like the definition of home in most people's minds has probably shifted. The difference between leaving at 7 or 8 o'clock for work, coming back for dinner, a place to hang your hat and shelter from the storm. People, if you're in there day in, day out, you're looking at it through a different lens. And I think where that's going to be interesting is a lot of those people that have bought those 700 square foot condos, particularly in the GTA, and it was fine for that kind of scenario. But when you're stuck in there for 3 months with a partner or even all by yourself, I think a lot of people have come to the realization in the last little while that we need a little more space. Let's head a little bit out of the city and buy that next home. So I think that next wave of activity for my industry, our industry, is going to be, we're going to see a lot more of those people coming out looking
reconsideration. And I think that's great, Mike. I think that's so true. I think we'd be remiss in not talking about the reality that certain cycles or certain let's call it cycles of life are still going to continue to happen. Marriages are going to happen, births are going to happen, our seniors, our parents or grandparents are going to eventually pass away, and those natural cycles in the real estate market are going to continue. I think what we're seeing right now, that constraint that we're seeing right now, it's basically both the supply and the demand has come down for a few reasons.
Yes.
One, if I'm selling, can I qualify to buy something new? Two, if I'm buying, can I qualify to buy something new? And I think it's very important that we just touch on for a second that the banks and the finance, again, it's taken a bit of time for everybody because nobody was planning for this to have to adapt. So it's taken time for institutions and governments to align themselves, and still not necessarily there yet in terms of what are the lending criteria, how long are these emergency measures going to be in place. I do have clients who are being told, we'd love to help you buy this home, but if you're on that CERB compensation, which is essentially a form of employment insurance, if you're on that supplement, we're not able to use that as considered income, because we don't know if your employer is going to come back to full throttle or if your employer is going to perhaps go into layoff mode. So
Right.
come back to us when we know that we can count on your finances. So my caution to anybody, I would love to help you out with a mortgage. I'm sure Mike would love to sell you a home. I'm sure all the realtors would love to help you with the transaction. But I think the best guidance that we're giving our clients is make sure you've got that nest egg, make sure you've got your down payment taken care of, make sure that you have some sense that your employment is in good shape.
Yeah, verifiable ongoing income is key for lenders, regardless of whether you have $1 million home to sell. Yeah, they're scrutinizing a little more, and rightfully so. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, let's take this section because you talked on some good information. Let's take this section about 2 minutes that we've got here before we go to break, and let's just talk on what do the numbers really reflect. The slightly lower home prices, I think you can give us some data on what types of houses are being sold and how did that influence the averages?
Well, if you look at the headlines over the past few weeks, and this will continue on into the future, you know the media headlines have to grab your attention, pull you in, whether it's an online headline, the lead up to the news, tune in at 6 for this. And that headline with relation to real estate tends to revolve around the fact that average home prices have dropped across Canada by 11% in the last few weeks. Huffington Post had the headline, a whole number of others did. Immediately, a lot of people think, okay, average prices are down, my home therefore is down 11% in value. But what it really means is the behavior of buyers is shifting. Fewer people are buying the higher, and I touched on this in earlier episodes. The people that typically buy the $1 million plus homes, they're stepping back for the moment. A lot of them were heavily invested into the stock market, which took a hit. So they're regrouping, and they're being a little more conservative for the moment. Meanwhile, first-time buyers, mid-range home buyers, that activity is a little more active. So the shift to lower-priced homes from higher-priced homes has dropped that average price down a bit. Doesn't mean that each individual home has gone down 11%. What it means is the average price of the collective number of homes sold across the country is down. That's
so
not a
Mike,
I think, just
the takeaway from this then is that it's important that people who are considering what they're going to do next, if they're considering what they're going to do next, that they're speaking with a realtor who actually can help interpret the information, because it's not that the headlines are meant to be misleading, but you have to make sure that you're understanding. We're going to go to break, Mike. When we come back, though, let's talk about these changes that we were talking about in what the new reality is and what kind of habits they'll prompt. So stick with us on Hitting Home with Mike and Arv. This is valuable information that you're going to get if you're looking about what's up next for you in the real estate market and how this impacts you. You don't want to miss this next section. Stick with us on Hitting Home with Mike and Arv on Rogers TV Barrie.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
When I felt scared, United Way had my back. 5 years ago, I was a stay-at-home mom with 4 children, including one with special needs, and I was facing divorce. I needed a job fast and to figure out how to help my kids and myself through a difficult transition as gently as possible. With United Way funding, my kids were matched with mentors who provided guidance, attention, and a listening ear, which helped as I dealt with legal details and took job preparation classes. Now I see myself as a successful single mom who taught my kids how to become better, not bitter. My name's Kim, and donations to United Way Simcoe Muskoka helped change my life. Thank you.
And welcome back to Hitting Home with Mike and Arif. And Mike, before the break, we were talking about sort of what are we expecting? What does the new reality hold for us? And in this section, I wanted to talk about sort of the expectations on housing trends. But one of the things that's really important is if you're not planning on moving, or if you're not in the middle of the transaction, there are still some traditional realities that we all face. All of us have a 1, 2, 3, 5 year type of a mortgage term on our contract with our existing bank. And that's, of course, for those of us who do have a mortgage of some way, shape, or form or another. And the fact of the matter is, the reality of the matter is, it would be very, it wouldn't be good planning for us to think just because I'm in a home means I will always get to stay in a home. There's a difference between a renewal and a refinance and an equity takeout. And theoretically speaking, at the end of your term, you can anticipate 6 months before the end of your term, your bank is going to start reaching out to you to say, hey, listen, you're coming up for renewal. Stick with us for, here are your options. Just sign this page. And, you're signing a declaration that nothing major has changed in your life and you can keep your mortgage and go on as normal. You may or may not get the best rate. You may or may not get the most attractive product out there, but you may go for the convenience and the ease of not having to go through the qualification process, the legal process, and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Not necessarily the worst advice that you might receive from somebody who has an interest in your financial well-being. But if you're thinking of switching banks, refinancing, or doing an equity takeout, or maybe looking at another investment property, you are going to go through the qualification period and process. And I think that it's important to say that some people, everybody should take this into consideration, that to stay in your home, but to change anything in your financial obligation with the lender who's providing you mortgage funds, you will go through that process. And today, with the uncertainty, there is an added level or layer of scrutiny. Yeah. Bear that in mind. Get the right advice from your broker. We'll probably do another show on this, and let's do that. Let's move along. There are people.
Precisely why everybody gravitates to the party.
That's right. That is just stimulating conversation for sure. But let's get into what are some of the other changes that people might do. Because, Mike, we've talked about the trend towards second suites. We've talked about the trend towards families may stay together longer or have an in-law living in there. Why don't you touch on some of that? What are you seeing out there?
That's exactly. There are going to be pressures, perhaps financially, or maybe even just a will for people to treat that home and family unit in a different way. I think we were kind of leading in that direction anyways, but I think this may speed it up. More people looking to create second suites. I think developers are going to be looking to create new build homes with that second suite already built in, or at least designed that's an easy conversion to do with a home for someone who wants it. I think we'll see more of that. I think within downtown cores, there is a shift away from, it's kind of a reversal of that sprawl that we saw through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. We filled up all that land. Everybody's done all their big box store shopping and shopping mall shopping, and now we're seeing some of those big stores like Sears, the Bay, it's rumored. A number of those big stores are disappearing. And I think with this crisis, people may be shifting more back to the single-use type of store, more personalized service, gravitating into the downtown. I think as we've seen in some of the bigger centers like Toronto, a lot of that older type of outdated residential development is being bulldozed and condos going up. I don't expect a same type of condo development here as in Toronto, but I still think we'll see a lot more multi-residential, a lot of it repurposed land in the downtown of Barrie. That's something we're going to see going forward, and people will kind of revert more to a walkable downtown city. And hopefully the city, and I think they are putting more effort and money into making a downtown core walkable, livable, and enjoyable.
So, Mike, and that's exactly, I'm glad you're touching on that. I think, if anything, pre the last 3 months, I'm glad you talked about the shopping malls, the big box stores. I don't know that they were going away, but what I do know is that they were certainly in tune with, or becoming in tune with, and paying attention to the will of the buyer. What is the habit of the consumer? And the habit of the consumer was looking for more of a walkable experience. They didn't necessarily want to have the responsibility for the maintenance and upkeep of a single detached home, which came with shoveling a driveway or cutting the grass, etc. But they were looking for a live, work, play experience. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the developers, certainly in the commercial space, were getting smart to the idea of saying, let's take a mall scenario, and we may be losing some anchors, for example, Sears, but let's convert that into live above the mall. And while that might frighten some people, that certainly would attract them.
You're basically recreating the 1950s, 40s downtown experience, live, shop, and work in the same area.
What old is new again, right? And definitely get that walkable experience, the village experience. You have a grocer downtown. You can get everything taken care of on the way to and from work. That is fine. However, I'm quite certain that this past couple of months, the reality of it, that, oh my gosh, it can actually happen to me, has probably caused some people to sit and think about what kind of proximity do I want to have with masses of people, more than 5, 10, 15, 20? Do I want to live in a building with 1,000 people around me? I don't want to travel on a plane. I don't want to be in spaces. I'm going to be wearing a mask. Do I want to? How long is this reality going to be a reality? And, there are discussions that say, will I ever hug someone again? And am I going to shake hands again? Or am I going to fist pump or elbow bump somebody?
Yeah.
I have my own opinion on it, but I know that it is a very real conversation that's being had.
I think running parallel to that relook at downtown cores and a more of an intensification of downtown, what's also happening is a number more of more people are wanting to get out of that urban environment and live rurally. For financial reasons, you get more bang per buck for a rural property than you do an in-town property. But I have a client, we just sold their house in town, South Barrie. They have 3 young boys. We just finished the deal last night on a home up near Wabashine. I asked him this morning, and just summarizing everything we went through yesterday with the negotiation, I said, where would you have rather spent the last 3 months with your family? Full knowing the answer, but he says, oh, most definitely, with 3 young boys out in the country. So there is a segment of the population, and probably a growing segment, that will opt for that. And I think as part of that, and through COVID-19, we're developing the ability to work from home a lot more. So there'll be fewer people commuting, perhaps, or more people with that alternative or that option to be able to do their job from home. And that's going to influence our needs and demands for housing. It might let people spread even further out. There's a lot of ways that can come into play. Your thoughts on that?
Well, listen, Mike, I'm glad you asked the question. I'm really glad that you brought that up, and I do have some thoughts on that. When we come back from the break, let's actually pick up on that, because I recognize that it's a trend. I'm seeing it in my business. I'm seeing it in the deals and the patterns of the deals that are coming in. I have some guidance for our audience with regard to that. I'm not saying I'm supportive of it or I'm not supportive of it. If you're going to do it, I've got a little bit of guidance for you. So let's go to break real quick. When we come back on Rogers TV Barrie, we will enter into how does changing my plan actually impact me, or what do I need to do differently based on the type of property that I'm looking at buying? So stick with us. We'll be right back on Hitting Home with Mike and RF.
Introducing the McLaren 50/50, an online raffle in support of the not-for-profit McLaren Arts Centre. This monthly draw is organized with the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation, giving you a chance to win big. www.mac5050.com.
You to help me. Come and play my game. You don't just give up on the people you love. Game's not over. Buckle up. Ooh. Number one.
The Matthews House Hospice Bucket List Lottery is now on. Time is running out. The grand prize draw is on July 1st. Tickets available online at mhh5050.ca and throughout South Simcoe. What's on your bucket list?
Welcome back to Hitting Home with Mike and Arif. And where we left off, Arif, you had some points you wanted to make with regards to that exodus, if you call it that, of people from urban living to a more rural lifestyle.
Well, it's funny, Mike, because I know you said, this is great, stimulating conversation. You're the life of the party. Well, here's the reality. I love that people are thinking, they're paying attention to what's going on. A lot of the patterns that you're hearing or comments that you're hearing from people is they really do value their time with their family. They value quality of life. And I think that these are great talking points. What's important, though, is that we remember that lending, kind of like insurance or the stock market or any type of investing, there's risk, and risk is an element that is factored into the type of rate that you get, whether you're offered fixed or variable, how much money you qualify for, how much of your income do you get to allot to supporting your expenses of living in terms of mortgage, taxes, heat, hydro, insurance, credit cards, lines of credit, that kind of thing.
That's rural
and so this relates to rural in a very important reason, and for a very important reason. And that reason is this: traditionally, and I hate to say it, but again, banks and large institutions are very slow to move or pivot or adapt. Here's the thing: risk is about, from a lender's perspective, when looking at the type of home, one of the things that they consider is if by chance the homeowner isn't able to make their payment, and we have to get into the position where we take possession of the house to sell it, how quickly is this home saleable? How quickly can we turn this around? Banks don't want to be landlords. They do not want to hold on to a property. They want all they want is their interest payment to be made. So if you're looking at going out into a rural property, and that rural property 100% will take longer to sell because, traditionally speaking, it will appeal to a smaller percentage of the home buying population.
But if there's a shift in that demand level and it's going up, then it should increase the confidence levels and the numbers that lenders are relying on. So
you use the word should. You use the word should, and we might see a shift. Yeah. But will that shift be dramatic to shift from the 80% likelihood of those living in a built-up area to 82%, or will it become 50-50? And the bank will always be slow to respond. So what I'm telling you, what I want to share with our audience is, if you're choosing to move now, anticipate that some lenders, unless you're into a CMHC or a mortgage default insured loan where you can move anywhere in Canada whatsoever and you live by the same criteria, unless you're in that particular category, the bank may impose slightly different lending conditions. For example, they may require a slightly higher down payment, or they may reflect it in the rate, or they may simply say, and a lot of banks right now are saying, sorry, we don't lend in that area. It's outside of our lending area.
I completed a transaction there. It went without effort. So there are still lenders. I don't want to scare everybody away. There are still lenders who will treat you fairly going to a rural environment. But yeah, everything that they're going to look at on a rural property, they're going to look at, and a little more so on the
my point is, my point to the viewer is eyes wide open. Yep. Eyes wide open. Go in with, if you're planning on making a move, get some of these questions answered ahead of schedule, and save yourself the frustration.
I'd like to talk a little bit more on what we touched on before the break too, and that is a possible shift to the work from home type of scenario. Technology and broadband and everything is accommodating this, making it easier for people to actually do this. There's always been that fear or stigma if the employer can't see their employee, therefore the employee is not working. I think this has been tested, and I think a lot of employers are realizing, you know what, this scenario works, and maybe it's healthier for everybody. And certainly, it's there's cost considerations there to doing it from an employer standpoint.
In my business, one of my business, we definitely are seeing more of this. We actually have all of our employees who are working from home right now. There is technology. It is tried and true technology. At first blush, it sounds a little bit invasive, but the plain and simple facts is that there's technology that allows your system to take screenshots to make sure, or it basically will time out if there's no activity going. It's not necessarily keystroke recording and spying on what the person's doing. It's just that there are ways to track productivity without being invasive. Still allows people to save themselves the commute, work in their own home environment, increase productivity, and actually is very attractive to the employer, somewhat concerning, I'm imagining, to the commercial landlords in terms of what will happen to the demand for commercial space once you realize that you can be almost equally productive working from home.
I see a business opportunity for people printing life-size selfie cutouts to position in front of your computer for that.
Mike, in our final 90 seconds, though, let's talk about this. I mean, I really do see a shift, and I'd love to get a developer or an urban planner on the show maybe in a couple of weeks. I know we have our guest lined up for next week, but I'd love to talk about that. What is the impact going to be on municipalities if the developers see a shift in demand away from this high density? The province has been pushing high density. The province has been pushing development within the urban core. High density equals condo living, apartment living. We're out of time, Mike. We literally have just a few seconds left. But I want our audience to know, I think it would be great to have an urban planner on here to discuss.
For sure. We will do that in 2 weeks, because next week we have Peter Lamprey, who is a real estate lawyer, and there's a lot of interesting things he'll be talking about with us, and certainly I have a number of questions for him. So tune in next week as well.
Absolutely. So when we do, put it this way, I'm now just having a conversation with you. So in the next 20 seconds, I'm letting you know, I want to find out what are the developers, what's happening when the developers pick up the phone with land use planners and saying, hey, listen, I've changed my mind. We're going to go this way. This is the trend that we see. But also, what's the impact going to be on the municipality that thought that it was going to have a ton of revenue coming in from high density, and that may be shifted? We are completely out of
many new scenarios.
Thanks for the conversation, Mike. It's been great. We'll see you next time on Hitting Home with RF and Mike and RF on Rogers TV Barrie.